Hello and welcome to Review the Light. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Imalent EU06 Ultraviolet Edition. So really quick, if you haven't yet, go ahead and click this link up here to subscribe to my YouTube channel, this link up here to like my Facebook page and keep up with me there, and you can click on the link that I'll put below to see the full review if you want to check out all the details like run times, beam shots, output measurements, all that great stuff. So the Imalent EU06 is a new light by a new manufacturer. Imalent is relatively new in the field, and they're doing some pretty exciting things. You can see Imalent is one of their models that has an LCD touch screen, and it's got several different emitters here. It's got a main Cree XML emitter, and it's got two side emitters. One is a neutral tinted white emitter, and the other is an ultraviolet emitter. So you can see on the box they've kind of got this blue and black theme, color theme going, and they have some of their specifications for the light here, and those I'll test and put the results in the full review, and a little bit of information on the back. They say that the EU06 is part of the Shark series, so that's kind of fun. And this is the packaging, so we're going to go ahead and open it up. And inside you've got this kind of plastic case that the light is in, along with the accessories. We'll dump out the accessories here. So it comes with a couple of spare O-rings and what looks like a replacement screen cover for the LCD screen. It came with a little plastic piece over it already that I peeled off. It was just kind of like a little protective thing. I could have used it with the plastic piece on there, but I took it off because the responsivity of the screen was a little bit better there. It also comes with the warranty card, an instruction manual, which you'll want to keep around because the interface of the EU06 is fairly complicated and it might take a little getting used to. And a holster. The holster has this thingy here. You can clip it. You can put the light in this part here, and then just hit the Velcro flap down over it. To attach the holster, you can either use this clip, you can use this Velcro section, or if you want to loop a belt or some such device through this part that won't come unvelcroed, that's an option too. So that's the holster. So on to the light itself, which is the exciting part here. So I'll take it out of its little blister pack. There we go. Alright, so as I mentioned, it came with a screen protector over the LCD screen. I am normally a plastic lever-oner when it comes to that kind of thing, and my wife makes fun of me for it, but I have taken it off here because, like I said, it makes the screen respond a little bit better without it on there. And we'll take a look at the head first. If I put some light in there, you'll be able to see the emitter down there. You can see it's well centered. It's got a smooth reflector, and it's actually fairly deep in there, so the emitter sits about this far deep into the head, so it's actually pretty well focused for a relatively small diameter head. It's going to have a decent amount of throw. You can see the reflector is smooth also, so that sacrifices if the reflector were textured, that tends to smooth out the beam a little bit, but the smooth reflector tends to throw the beam a little bit farther, so that's the trade-off that you have there. It has also the two side emitters. So on this side here is the ultraviolet emitter. On the regular EU06, this is a red Cree XPE emitter. Here it's an ultraviolet Cree XPE emitter, and that's in there behind this little kind of diffusing lens there. And the same thing, a little diffusing lens on this side has a neutral emitter there. And then the LCD screen, and on the back side here is the power button. You can see it's got the power symbol and a little M for the mode button. And there's no buttons on the back, but there is a threaded tail cap. This fits kind of a standard, like a tripod mount threading. It's a little bit shallower than a standard tripod mount, so it's not quite as secure as it could be if it were a little bit deeper, but it's there, and it's kind of a nifty feature. You can see also a little bit of a groove pattern on the body for some extra grip, and a few heat dissipation fins here at the head, but there's enough mass and surface area in the head that it doesn't need a lot of heat dissipation, and it works pretty well there. Plus there's a step down after a few minutes, so there's not too much heat build up. We'll open it up and take a look inside. You can see the spring here in the head to make contact with the positive battery terminal. That means it'll work with either flat top or button top batteries, and this takes either one 18650 lithium-ion battery or else two CR123 lithium primary batteries. And you can see the tail cap here also comes off. There's a spring on that side that makes connection with the negative end of the battery, so that allows you to fit a variety of cell lengths and also helps protect them in the event of an impact, so that's a nice feature. I'll go ahead and slip a battery in there. I've got an 18650 battery here. Now, it's actually got a little bit of wiggle room for the battery, even with an 18650, which are a little bit wider in diameter than the smaller CR123 cells. If I were going to use CR123 cells in here, I'd want to have some sort of a spacer around the edge to keep them steady, so they didn't wiggle around too much. But that's in there, and then once you actually have it in, the battery doesn't wiggle around too much. And you might have noticed the screen flashed on there for a second when I first connected the battery to just to show that it is working properly and the battery is in there correctly. So to first turn on the light when it's off, you can press the mode button and nothing will happen. To turn the light on, you press the power button one time and the light turns on. You can see the main emitter here, and this looks kind of bluish on your screen due to my white balance, but in reality the actual beam is just a pretty cool white tint. If you want to see a better picture, you can check out the link to the full review down there. But this is the main beam, so when you first turn it on, this screen comes on here. If you wait 30 seconds without doing anything, it times out and the screen will turn off to save battery power. Or you can turn it off by pressing the mode button in the back, or back on when it's off by pressing that mode button. So when it's on, the first thing you'll notice is it's got these kind of bars here, and also a battery in the middle. That's your battery status indicator. Those little battery blocks will go away inside that picture of the battery as the battery powers down, and when it gets to about 15 minutes left of runtime, then the battery starts flashing that little picture. So the first thing you can do when the light is on is with the touch screen, kind of either touch or scroll down up and down with your thumb or with a finger to change the brightness. So I'll demonstrate that for you here. You can see I'm scrolling up and down with my thumb, and I've kind of got a fat thumb, so it is a little bit shaky, but I am adjusting the brightness here using that LCD screen. So this is how you adjust the brightness. It goes down very low up to the very high output, and there are individual bars. If my camera will focus, you'll see that, or else you can check out the pictures in the full review. Those bars don't correspond one-to-one to the light levels. There's several light levels per bar, so those are just sort of a general indication of the light level. There's actually it looks like a kind of a stepless dimming almost. There are steps, but there's enough steps that you can't really tell the difference. It's pretty smooth in its action between, so you can leave it anywhere you like. You can either just touch in a certain spot and set it to that level, or you can kind of scroll up and down by swiping it that direction. The other thing you can do with the screen is hold down here where it says mode, and you can switch which emitter is activated. So this is the ultraviolet emitter here, and you can see it's actually puts out a fair amount of visible white light, which is maybe a little bit different than you might be used to. I'm trying to get a hold of the data sheet for the Cree XPE ultraviolet emitter. If I can, I'll probably put a link to it in the full review to see exactly what's going on, because it seems to be putting out more white light than I'm used to from an ultraviolet emitter, but it does put out UV light as well, a significant amount, so quite as much. So the actual lumen rating for this, as I measured it, I'm not sure what the rating is, but what I measured it is actually just right around 1 lumen for the maximum, and the minimum output for this, you'll see this is adjustable as well, is below 0.1 lumens. I can't tell how far below, but it's a very dim amount, but of visible light. There's a significant amount of ultraviolet light, though, which doesn't go into the lumen rating, and that's a long story I won't get into. But anyway, so once you've got this on, I'm going to hit the mode button in the back to turn this back on. So the side emitter also is controlled by this panel. So you can see I'm dimming it, and it actually kind of has a yellowish look to your eyes on the low levels. I'm not sure exactly why that is. I'm going to be looking into that also when I get a hold of the data sheet. But you can see the brightness of this one is adjustable on the side as well. And in a minute here I'll pull out some ultraviolet fluorescent objects so you can get an idea of that. But yeah, so it memorizes the setting for the side emitters independently of the main emitter. So say I have my ultraviolet emitter set to maximum, I might switch over here to the neutral emitter. So this is the neutral emitter on the side, and it doesn't look too neutral right now. You'll notice it just kind of looks pretty cool still due to my white balance. And again, you want to check the full review link to see just how nice that neutral emitter really is. But again, so maybe I want to put this on its minimum and then hold the mode a second back and then put the main emitter somewhere in the middle. As I switch between them, it remembers where each one was. So if I say switch to the ultraviolet, it remembers I had that on maximum. If I switch back to the side, it remembers I had that on minimum. Switch back to the main, it remembers that I had that on the full output. And then the other option that you have is these blinking modes. So in addition, you have the strobe, and you have a beacon mode, which is just kind of a slow strobe basically. And you have an SOS mode, it flashes in Morse code there. And those are separate from the side emitters. So say I have the side emitter on and I hit the mode button on the back, it switches back to the main emitter. So only the main emitter does those blinky modes. And all of these blinky modes, the strobe, the beacon, and the SOS, are brightness controllable. So if I scroll down here, you can see I've got a slow strobe up to a dim strobe when I have it down here, up to a bright strobe there. So that's adjustable for the strobe, the beacon, and the SOS. So the last feature, I believe, is the lockout feature. And if you hold the power and the mode buttons together for about a second, it turns on for a second, then turns back off, and now it's in a lockout. So I can press buttons and it won't do anything. It's just for if it's going to be in your pocket or a bag for a while and you don't want to take the chance of it activating by accident. So that is the user interface of the EU06 Ultraviolet Edition. I believe I got everything, but if I find out that I missed anything, I'll try and add an annotation later. Now we are going to I guess, before we take it outside, I will show you how it looks, the ultraviolet performance here while we're inside. So let me turn the main lights off, and I will turn the ultraviolet emitter on here. So as I said, it does have some visible light that you can see a little bit there, but not a lot. So here I am looking at my hand. You can tell some visible light, but you can also see the standard, like the whitish yellowish tint to it from the ultraviolet fluorescing some of the stuff on my hand that maybe I didn't wash my hand completely before we came. So here's just a regular highlighter, and you can see highlighters are pretty well known for fluorescing under ultraviolet, and you can tell in my hand here, and you'll see this outside when we take it outside as well, but the visible light combined with the fluorescent means that the fluorescent things don't stand out quite as much as they would if there were no visible light, which I think the visible light might be coming from the plastic around the emitter. I'm not sure. I'll look into it. Here's just a little plastic orange gear tie that I have here, and that fluoresces orange pretty nicely. I'll put the highlighter back out here also. Plastic, clear plastic in general usually has a purple kind of fluorescent color. That's just a little SD card case I have. Obviously, most white things that we have fluoresce. So here's just some white printer paper that kind of has that purple fluorescent color to it. And here is a $50 bill. So a lot of denominations of paper currency have fluorescent markings on them. So you can see here that yellow strip along the bill there. You can tell that's to help authenticate the bill, so you know it's not a forgery. One of the main uses of UV lights professionally. So obviously with the visible light added, the fluorescent strip doesn't pop out as much. So depending on your application, that visible light added might be a good thing or it might be a bad thing. It's just up to you to decide. But there's quite a lot of ultraviolet light being put out here, and I can tell there's a lot of current going through it because the head's warming up right now pretty significantly, even though there's not a lot of visible light output. I wanted to show you the beam pattern. It's just a standard floody beam pattern there, but you can see that's what the beam looks like for the ultraviolet side emitter. And Again, if you want to check out some better pictures of that, you can just remember to click that link to the full review. So that's that. I'll turn the main lights back on. And I believe that's everything for the indoors, and we'll take it outside and give it a shot in the dark. Thanks. Hello and welcome back to Review the Light. Here we've got the Imalent EU06 outside, the ultraviolet version. So we are going to give it a shot in the dark. I'm just going to go ahead and turn it on here. You got to remember to tighten it all the way. All right, here we go. There it is. You can see the beam here. It looks a little bit cooler on the camera than it does in real life, but it does have a fairly cool beam, like I mentioned. So you can see the spot, very smooth, soft transition out into the spill. Now on the camera it's looking like the spill ends about right here, but in reality I can see it a little bit further out, so hopefully in the post-processing I'll be able to make that a little bit easier to see. But yeah, it's the very smooth transition from the hot spot out into the spill. And a fairly cool tint. This is the maximum output that it comes on right away, and as you can see it's been about 30 seconds, so the screen has turned off already. I'll go ahead and turn it back on. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with the user interface out here, because hopefully I'll have covered that already fully, and you can rewind a little bit if you have any questions about that. But there I'm increasing and decreasing the brightness, so you can see the effect that's having there, and also on the ground. Increasing and decreasing the brightness. You can see very smooth. Obviously more steps than just the bars that are shown there. The minimum brightness is very dim. You can see here up close that's the minimum brightness, and even at the camera, my camera might be set to too high of a setting for you to tell, but there's the minimum brightness, and looking at the beam you can see it gets very bright. So that's the adjustable beam there, the adjustable brightness there. So I'll demonstrate some of the flashing modes. So here's the strobe, and I believe we're in beacon here, and then the SOS, and as you remember, all of those, the strobe, the beacon, and the SOS are adjustable in their brightness. So here I've made it be a dim SOS, and then I can brighten it if I desire. The same with the strobe or the beacon, just as with the regular output. And then here we are switching to the side emitter. This is going to be a little bit harder to tell. This is the ultraviolet emitter, and as you remember, it does have a fair amount of output in the visible region compared to some ultraviolet emitters you may be used to, but it does have the ultraviolet output as well. So here's my hand. You can see my whole hand is lighting up, not just the fluorescent parts, but if you look, it does make my hand appear a little bit yellowish, and you can see a little bit of white flecks in here where it's probably dirty, like under my nails and such. I'm going to throw a few ultraviolet objects up so you can see out here in the dark. So here's a little bit of just plastic, standard plastic, like from my SD card case. What else do we have here? Highlighter, fluorescing. You can see standing out against my hand, it is fluorescing, so that it's shining more than my hand there. What else have I got in my pocket? The bit of paper. You can see it's got a very purplish tint to it, but it's fluorescing as well. And looks like I have my gear tie here. So you can see the fluorescence of that pretty nicely. So I'm going to throw a few of these things on the ground just so we can see what they look like compared to some of the objects, like you might, if you're like looking on the ground or what have you. So you can see there, not a lot of distinction at this range because it is a very floody beam, but I will get up closer and you can see a little bit better some of those objects. So here I've got it up close to the piece of paper, and I'm laying it kind of close, but there's the piece of plastic, there's the highlighter, and there is the gear tie. So say if you were searching for something that you dropped in the grass, or you know, some scorpions or other bugs are going to fluoresce in the grass. There is a fair amount of visible output, so depending on your application, you may appreciate that, or you may wish that the fluorescent thing stood out a little bit better, but that's just what it looks like there. So for your application, you can decide if that's what you like or not. So that is the UV emitter. Let me get my camera resituated here, and then I'll hit the mode switch again here, we've got the UV, and here's the neutral emitter, the flood, and you can see there's quite a bit of flood put out there, and obviously not showing up on my camera as well as it is in real life, but it's very bright. I'll point this back at the ground so you can just kind of get an idea what's going on. You can see everything very well. It's a nice warm beam, very good color rendering as far as I can tell. I'm not a connoisseur of such things, but I do appreciate the warm beam here, and a very good flood. And I can see most of this field that we're in is being illuminated by the beam, at least to some extent, so that if there were anyone out there or anything, I could see it at least partially illuminated well enough to identify it. So that's pretty useful. And obviously, being a flood emitter, it's got almost 180 degrees of flood, which is really nice. So there's that, and I'll demonstrate the dimming of it. So I'll turn the controller back on, and I'll point it at the ground just so you can see it better, but after we focus here. So here's as I'm dimming it, and then, oh, I accidentally hit the mode button. There's the maximum, and then as I can dim it to the minimum. So there's a demonstration of its range. So very good range, very good, nice warm flood. Really appreciate that. So those are the modes available with the EU06 ultraviolet. Again, if you have any more questions or want to see some great details, go ahead and check out the link that's down here in the description. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, that link's up here. And if you want to follow me on Facebook, that link's up here. And if you liked this video, go ahead and click the like button. So thanks for joining Review the Light, and we'll see you next time.